Good evening. Welcome to Space Odysseys. Thank you so much for being here. We're live with you on Facebook and YouTube. And we've got a fairly packed panel tonight. We almost had Celebrity Squares earlier, but Daz has disappeared, unfortunately, due to his ongoing connection problems. So thank you very much for being here anyway. I'm joined this evening by Michael and Bernard and Lou and Roger and Rachel and Jonathan and our very special guest. Lou, would you like to introduce our special guest for the evening?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to actually, I'll try to introduce. We have today Dr. Nour Raouafi. Did I get that your last name right? Raouafi?
Yes, you got it. Yes.
Excellent.
That's close enough. Yes.
Excellent. Nour is an astrophysicist and a member of Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory, and he is also the chief scientist for the Parker Solar Probe mission, NASA's mission to the sun, to touch the sun, which it turns out holds the record as the closest spacecraft to any star, our sun, and the fastest spacecraft. Nour got his PhD from the University of Paris. Before joining Johns Hopkins, he worked at the Max Planck Institute for Solar System Research and the National Solar Observatory in Tucson. And in fact, Nour, as I read your resume and all of your research areas here, I think he holds more information about the sun and how it works than all the combined texts on the planet today. So we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate to have Dr. Raouafi here with us, and he's going to present and talk to us a little bit about the sun and about Parker Solar Probe in a few minutes. But before we do that, we're going to go to our bread and butter for Space Oddities, and that is Roger. What's up in the night sky, Roger?
Well, you're all about to find out in the next 60 seconds or so. Right, okay, so for the 20th to the 26th of March, we are entering into the new moon and then going on to the first quarter later on during next week. So not too bad at the moment. Should you get clear skies, but that usually happens when it's a full moon, not a new moon. Now, I couldn't get an image of the sun today, so I got one on the 19th. So, but as you are aware there, you can start to see some large sunspots coming around again. So watch out for the aurora starting to appear, hopefully, when it is a bit more face on in the next few days. And this is using my Lunt Herschel wedge that I got at the Practical Astronomy Show a couple of weekends ago. So,
Oh, how is it? Does it work okay?
Well, the result is on the screen.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So you're happy with it then?
I am. But things could look a lot better when I get my quark chromosphere, but later on soon. Right.
Roger, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Am I right to assume that there has been a very big prominence on the other side of the sun a few days ago? Is that correct or not?
I have been told that there might be an aurora alert coming shortly, so that might be due to that effect of that prominence.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there was a massive ejection on the dark side of the moon. What am I talking about? On the far side of the sun. It was away from us, so it's not going to hit us. But they think it was possibly on par with the Carrington event.
My goodness.
So it would have caused us some problems if it had come our way. That's what I was told anyway. So back to you.
We'll probably let Nour tell us more about this.
Yes, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Right. Now, if anyone is interested in the minor planets, Ceres is coming up to opposition tomorrow, as we're now pretty much lost Comet ZTF now. It's just gone past the bottom of Orion, past the Witch Head, and that was quite an interesting picture that I saw on Facebook the other day. And around about the 26th, I think, is a good photo opportunity with M100. That's currently in north of Virgo and down in Canes Venatici. So might be a photo opportunity, although it will just look like a tiny little faint star. But there is a possibility of doing a time lapse to show how the minor planets move in relation to the background, and gets quite close to M100 in the night sky, but not physically. That would be rather difficult. Right. I did try and work out if I could take a picture of it, how it would look through my C11, and I can just about frame it up quite nicely. So should there be a clear sky, which is very doubtful, I'll have a go and see what happens with that. Anyway, this week's night sky, we've got Orion now setting over towards the southwest. Venus still looking quite prominently well in the evening sky. These times are all at 8 p.m. at the moment, although Saturday night the clocks will spring forward an hour, so we all lose an hour's sleep and an hour's less astronomical darkness. Boo-hoo. Anyway,
yeah, indeed.
But the galaxy season is coming up quite nicely, with Leo and Virgo now making a more dramatic appearance in the night sky. So we'll be all trying to capture as many interesting objects as possible through those constellations. And Venus is still looking quite good. We've got Jupiter and the Moon on the 22nd quite close together, although that will be quite close to the horizon. And then Moon and Venus on the 24th, which I've got here, which is quite nice thin crescent moon. So another little photo opportunity for anyone that would be interested in that. And there we go. So Bernard was making some interesting comments earlier today and posted this picture. Now, this picture of some clouds on another planet, Mars, in fact.
That's correct. That's correct. I posted this internally to the group because I saw this. I think I saw this on one of the Twitter feeds, Perseverance, and they posted this, and I think it's just absolutely amazing that we have, of course, we've been having rovers for decades now on Mars and sending from time to time pictures of the night sky, of the sky on Mars, and sometimes clouds. But these ones I thought were absolutely spectacular. I haven't been moved by clouds on Mars for quite some time, and I wanted to share it with you folks and with our viewers.
We have seen a few images over the last couple of years from Perseverance of clouds in the sky of Mars, but this one just takes the biscuit. It's just so dramatic. It's just and the colours in it are just unbelievable. So beautiful.
Absolutely.
So
almost like a spine and ribs coming away from it.
Maybe your spine and ribs.
Yeah.
But yes, I see what you mean. Yes, I was just being me, basically.
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful.
So after looking at that from Bernard, I decided to see what else there was about from.
There we are.
And this one's almost like a feather in the Martian skies.
Yeah, very nice. It's almost like a psychology test, right?
Yeah,
we're trying to figure out what's in the
like a Rorschach test. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yes, beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
And then there's these rays coming out. Yes. But it's almost like noctilucent clouds in the distance behind it.
Yeah, true.
It's a shame we don't have Mary, because she would obviously give us more insight into the clouds.
Yeah. Sorry, you can't be with us, Mary.
So I thought that was quite interesting. So
it's just incredible to sit back and think we're looking at the skies of another world. It's amazing.
Yeah. But we have a new image from the James Webb Space Image, and it's a Wolf-Rayet star. As there's some basic information there, it's 15,000 light years away, and the frame is about 10 light years across. And we can also see how much the dust has been shredded away from the star there. So according to the information that I have gleaned, the Nour E stars range from about 20,000 Kelvin to about 210,000 degrees Kelvin.
Wow.
So many, many times hotter than any type of star that we normally observe. So could be rather toasty.
So this is a star that is about to go supernova. It's right at the very end of its life. And the sort of the puffs, if I can describe them that way, that's all material that has been thrown off by the star in previous outbursts. If you think of something like Eta Cairni, that massive outburst it had in the 1890s, and it's which formed the incredible nebula around it. As these massive stars, they are huge stars, very hot, get to the end of their lives, and they throw off dust and gas in subsequent outbursts, which are then illuminated by the star. But you're looking at a star that is going to go supernova, any time now, where any time now is any time within the next X 100,000 years, or maybe even million. I don't know, but I don't know about this particular one. But this is a star, a massive hot star, right at the end of its life.
Yeah.
Waiting to go bang.
Yes. And all that'll be left is a carbon-oxygen core.
There we are then.
There we
There we
are.
are.
So
although with that sort of mass, won't it collapse into either a neutron star or a black hole? I would have thought.
Well, could well do.
Could well do.
Watch this space, or that space.
Ian in the comments says, will it get really bright? Yes, it probably will, but it is 15,000 light years away, so I doubt whether it's going to show up in our night sky that much. But we will wait and see. You never know. You never know. And Graham says it looks like a brain.
Yes.
Which it does, actually. Yeah, well observed, Graham. So there we are.
Yes.
It's a wonderful image.
Yes. It's about time we had something come from the James Webb after all this time, but obviously got all these other projects that are in the pipeline, and we just get to see what we get when they're published.
I thought you were about to say it's about time we had a nearby supernova in our own galaxy, and that's well overdue. So there we are.
Betelgeuse.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's the prize contender, isn't it? Yeah. Not that we'll live to see it, but there we are.
Okay.
Great.
That concludes my speech for this evening.
That's wonderful. So thank you so much, Roger, for that. And we'll just get rid of that from the screen for you. So there we are. So that's Roger's look at the night sky, without which this program would never be complete. So thank you for that, Roger. I'm going to hand you back to Lou now. Lou, if you'd like to sort of have a chat with Nour, or start off the chat.
Absolutely. So as we said at the beginning of the program, we have Dr. Nour Raouafi with us today. We're very excited to hear what he has to say. He is chief scientist for the Parker Solar Probe mission. So we're going to learn a lot about the sun and its mysteries, and some of the mysteries that Parker Solar Probe has uncovered. And Ro, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know you have some slides that you brought with you. Would you like to talk to those, and we can kind of interject? And I know we're going to be getting questions from our audience in the text.
Yes, if you have any questions for Nour, please do put them in the chat, and I'm sure he'll do his very best to answer them for you.
Yeah, and thank you, Lou, and the Space Oddities for having me on the Space Oddities show. It's an amazing show, and it's an honor for me to be here. Just to double check, do you hear me?
Very well.
Excellent.
Very well, thank you.
So I don't want this presentation to be like a conference presentation. I I prefer it to be like a debate between all of us. So that's probably my preference.
Okay.
I will just say a few things, but please, if you have any questions, interject and ask them. Usually, that's actually it's a better way to get more information out there than just having a presentation from end to end. So what I will start with. I think I will start with Hubble, which is very close to James Webb, and this is one of my favorite images that Hubble gave us over the years, and it's just amazing when you look at this image. What you are seeing there is thousands and thousands of galaxies and stars and nebulae, and you name it. And why I love this? Because it reminds me of my childhood. I was born in the countryside. We did not really have much light pollution, and I enjoyed my summers. I usually lay on my back and look at the sky, and I was a very curious child. I was wondering what is going on out there. What are these bright objects we see there? And to be honest with you, that question lives with me, and I believe it lives with many of us throughout our lives. To this day, we are wondering what is going on within these stars and galaxies and all these objects we see with modern telescopes like James Webb and Hubble and others. Talking about stars, obviously all these objects we are seeing here, they are so far away, and we cannot observe in many details. And in that respect, we are so fortunate to have a star that is in our neighborhood. I hope this movie will play. I don't think it's going to. Is there a way to play the movie?
Even if it doesn't play, it's an amazing image already.
Yeah. So,
anyway. I'm afraid the videos won't play, but you can do it by sharing your screen, but not this way.
Excellent. So, I was saying we are so fortunate to be living in the neighborhood of a medium-sized star that is the sun. But also, we oftentimes when you say it's a medium-sized star, it's kind of, this is a small one. It's not, but the sun is really a fascinating object out there. It is almost the whole solar system by itself. When you see it, the mass of the whole solar system, the sun alone has 99.98% of the total mass of the solar system. So in a way, it drives the solar system from end to end, and that's what stars do to their planetary environment and to their stellar sphere, And but the sun still, it's magnetized and it is extremely active. It is always changing. It is never still. And you may this is another movie that will not play, and you can also ask yourself, we invest a lot in space physics, and when you look at projects like Parker Solar Probe or James Webb, these are billions and billions of dollars, and you wonder why should we make those investments? And I think the easy question that comes to mind, we are humans, we are curious, we want to know what is going on out there. That's actually what drives us from the day we are born until we leave this earth. And, but if you look at the sun in particular, there is another reason that we need to understand how the sun works and how it shapes its environment, and particularly the Earth environment. The sun, as I said earlier, it is extremely active, and one of these planets, like the bright one here, it's us, Earth, and you can see through this image that we are living in the extended atmosphere of the sun. And we are affected by the magnetic activity in the form of big flares and CMEs. These are what drives space weather. And obviously, they can affect space equipment like the GPS satellites or telecommunication satellites. But if they are severe enough, their effect can impact ground infrastructure like the power grid, for instance. And again, I'm going to another movie that will not play, unfortunately. But this movie was this power outage on the northeast of Canada and the United States was caused by a Carrington-like event on March 13, 1989. That is a direct evidence of space weather. But there are other extreme examples of the effect of space weather. I think the most recent one is the loss of nearly over 40 satellites by SpaceX. And by the way, that event that caused that loss was not even severe at all. It was really a modest event on the sun's scale. So that's why we are interested in studying the sun. So what are the mysteries that we want to look at? And before going into that, let me, I love history, by the way. And when you look at the history of sciences, and particularly the science of sun and the heliosphere, there were key times when certain discoveries were made that changed the direction of research completely from there on. And here I'm just going to cite a few of them. The first one, obviously, is sunspots, the discovery of sunspots by Galileo in the early 1600s. And from there, we went to discover the solar cycle. That was about probably 100 years after Galileo, that people started counting sunspots, and they realized, yeah, the number of sunspots actually is cyclic. And the cycle is about 11 years old, 11 years on average. By the way, to this day, we do not really understand how the solar cycle works. And that's one of the big questions that the ESA-NASA space mission solar orbiter is supposed to address. And hopefully also other future space missions will help us with that. The other big discovery that really shaped the physics of the sun and the heliophysics is the discovery of white light flares by Richard Carrington in 1899. The two ribbons here, the white ones, are actually the ribbons of the flare, and these are among the most powerful flares on the sun. And 18 hours after, this event was followed by the strongest geomagnetic storm ever recorded in history.
Wow!
So you go from this discovery here, and by the way, Richard Carrington, I'm sure he enjoyed his discovery there, but I don't think he realized how immense that observation is, and those drawings that he did by hand. And by the way, I admire the accuracy of the drawings, both by Galileo and Carrington. They were just artists. And so this discovery basically is the birth of what we call now space weather. That's the initial observation that really links to space weather. And just for history, Carrington suggested that there might be a connection between the event he observed on the sun and the geomagnetic storm. But it was just a suggestion. There was no proof, solid proof for it. That one took hundreds of years to realize that. There is a connection, direct connection between the sun and Earth and the rest of the solar system, obviously. Now, if we go forward to 1908, until that point, we didn't really know what was causing the flares and sunspots and all that. It's only when George Hale observed strong magnetic fields and sunspots that we realized actually magnetic fields are the driver of all that we are seeing. And if this movie was playing, you will see that the sun is extremely active and it's changing all the time. By the way, this movie and images are from the Solar Dynamic Observatory, which is a NASA mission, and it's still ongoing. Now, fast forward to the late 50s and early 60s, we had two great scientists. One of them is Eugene Parker, after whom we named the Parker Sonic Probe mission, and also Marcia Negebauer. She works at the LPL in Tucson, Arizona. They both discovered the solar wind. One of them made the theoretical prediction, and Marshall Nickebauer, 4 years later, actually confirmed it through observations from the Mariner mission, Mariner 2. Now, you can ask yourself, yeah, I've been describing phenomena and mysteries on the sun and the solar atmosphere that are decades old. If you talk, for example, about solar activity, that when you have flares in CMEs, they accelerate certain particles to a good fraction of the speed of light. You have the solar wind, you have the heating. All of these problems are really old, but after decades, we do not really understand them. And the reason is very simple. Because since we are used to observing the sun from afar, we cannot really access the physical processes that are driving this phenomenon. So what to do? We have to send a little probe, that is this one here, that is Parker Solar Probe. We have to send it to the within the atmosphere of the sun, and to measure make measurements there and give us the data to understand the physics that is ongoing there. And that's exactly what Parker Solar Probe is doing. And by the way, the idea of sending a probe like Parker is not really new. It started with the Simpson Committee in 1958. And since then, people tried to implement this mission multiple times, but we did not succeed every time. Simply because either we did not have the technology, or the mission was too expensive for NASA to put forth. It's only in 2008 when here at the Applied Physics Lab of Johns Hopkins that we came with a new way how to implement the mission. Instead of using Jupiter and to get out of the ecliptic and fly above the solar poles and really go so deep into the solar atmosphere. And that mission was very short. We will have one flyby by the sun, maybe if we're lucky two, and each one of them will last probably less than a day. But with the new mission that when we use Venus several times to get closer and closer to the sun, the mission is much longer. It's the prime mission alone is seven years long. So. Okay, what are the big mysteries that we want to address with a mission like Parker Solar Probe? And I already talked about them in a way, I hinted at them. One of them is what we call the coronal heating problem. When you look at the surface of the sun, it is at about 6,000 degrees. You go a very short distance above, and the temperature of the plasma will climb to more than 1,000,000 degrees. And that's counterintuitive because from everyday experience, when you have a heat source, the further away you move from it, the cooler it gets. And obviously this does not hold for the solar corona. And that is a huge mystery to this day. But I think we are getting closer and closer to understanding what is going on there. The second problem, I wish these movies were playing. The second problem is the solar wind that was predicted by Gene Parker and confirmed by Marshall Nickebauer. The issue with the solar wind, by the way, the solar wind is a flow of charged particles. These are electrons, protons, and heavy ions. It's a flow that is continuously flying away from the sun to fill the whole atmosphere. But the issue with it is very simple. When you look at the base of the corona, the speed of the particles is very low. It's about 5 to 10 kilometers per second. But over a very short distance, these particles will start flying at hundreds of kilometers per second, meaning they are gaining a lot of energy, but we don't know where they are getting that energy from. And that's the problem of the acceleration of the solar wind. And by the way, the coronal heating and the acceleration of the wind, they are two faces for the same phenomenon. You cannot explain one without the other because it's the same plasma, and you cannot only heat or accelerate the plasma at any given time. You do them at the same time. So if we explain one, we will explain the other two. So we cannot really dissociate them one from the other. The third problem, the third problem for Parker Solar Probe to explain is how flares and CMEs can accelerate certain particles to almost the speed of light. These are the solar energetic particles that are very hazardous to space equipment, to human space, and also to us on the ground here for some events. Okay, I kind of talked a little bit about this, how we try to get to Parker Solar Probe closer to the sun. We use Venus, gravity assist. There are two ways to use gravity assist. Use gravity assist either to accelerate your spacecraft or to slow your spacecraft. In the case of Parker Solar Probe, we want to slow the spacecraft because if the spacecraft loses speed, it will dive deeper toward the sun. And that's exactly what we are doing. Every time Parker Solar Probe fly by Venus, it loses a little bit of energy to Venus. It's very, very tiny for a planet like Venus, but still, in terms of physics, yeah, Venus is gaining energy from Parker Solar Probe. And Parker Solar Probe gets slower, and then it dives deeper toward the sun. So we used Venus 5 times. This summer, we will fly by Venus for the 6th time. And a year later, we will fly by it for the 7th time to reach the ultimate perihelion, that is 9.86 solar radii from the center, or 3.8 million miles from the surface of the sun. That is extremely, extremely close. If the sun-Earth distance is, let's say, 1 meter, Parker Solar Probe will be at 4 centimeters from the sun. It's extremely close, and it's extremely challenging to do it. So, okay, why it took us so long to build a solar probe that can fly safely within the atmosphere of the star? Obviously, the environment there is extremely harsh. If you don't protect your spacecraft, you can lose it in time. And one of the key pieces of technology that we needed to invent to build this mission is a heat shield. And the heat shield, I have a sample here. I hope you see it. This is actually a sample of the heat shield that we are flying on Parker Solar Probe. And as you can see, and let me make it closer to the camera, it's actually carbon foam. It's like a carbon sponge, but it's actually sandwiched between 2 facets of carbon composite. And on the top side of it that is facing the sun, there is this white spray of plasma that was made specifically for Parker Solar Probe. It is white for obvious reason. We want to reflect as much light as possible back to the sun or to deep space. So when Parker Solar Probe is flying so close to the sun,
well, we appear to have lost Nour's connection. Nour, if you can hear us, we've lost your connection. Would you like to retry? Oh, that's a shame. Well, anyway, Ian, if you asked in the comments, that's the actual material that the heat shield's made from. Okay, let's hope we can reconnect with Nour in the US. In the meantime, I don't think there's anything we can do except move on. We'll just give them a few seconds just to see if we can.
I just want to point out that this technology, this heat shield, is technology that had to be developed after they imagined the mission. That technology didn't exist, and it keeps all of the instruments at something like room temperature. Everything that's behind the heat shield.
Yeah. So that they literally said, "Let's go to the sun." Oh, how are we going to protect the spacecraft?
Perhaps it wasn't that great a realization, but yeah, they had to develop that technology, just like James Webb had to develop new technologies during the period it was being developed.
Yeah, and on an even bigger scale, the square kilometre array, when it was in the planning stages nearly 20 years ago, they didn't have the computers to do it, and they only did recently. Right, Nour is able to rejoin us. We can see you again,
Yes.
Nour.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Although
I'm not sure if it is.
we have lost your presentation, so you'll have to reload your presentation, I'm afraid.
Okay, let me do it again.
Okay. While you're doing that, if you have any questions for Nour, viewers, put them in the chat. We already had Ian asking what was the heat shield made of, and you've answered that. And Graham says that heat shield material looks incredibly light.
It is. It is light, but also it's brittle. It's not really. But that's actually what we want. We want, because this piece of the heat shield is pretty big. It is 2.3 meters in diameter. So we want the material to be light, but also heat resistant, that can reject a lot of heat. That's actually the main goal of it. And this took us several years. Actually, for history, NASA approached APL back in 2001. And the main task was find the material to build the heat shield.
Yeah.
Because it was clear that without the heat shield, we cannot have Parker solar probe. We cannot have a solar probe.
Absolutely not.
And when in 2006, our engineers here at EPL succeeded at finding the right material to build the heat shield, NASA went ahead and started considering the mission seriously for implementation.
Wow.
Nour, I have a question for you. It looks very light, but it also doesn't seem very resistant to micrometeorites and such. Can you just...
That's really an excellent question. And yes, that is true. And actually, dust is one of the risks that we couldn't close, and we will never close until the end of the mission. And obviously, whenever you have dust particles that is hitting the heat shield or any part of the spacecraft, in particular the heat shield, it will create a crater in the heat shield. But we had a problem back when we started developing a Parker Solar Probe. We didn't really know much about the dust environment in the inner hemisphere. So what we have to do, be very, very conservative in the design of the heat shield, but also other subsystems of the spacecraft. So the 4.5-inch thick, that's actually way more than we need. So the mission can go for years and years and years before we have an issue with the issue. Yes.
Nour, we have another question in the text here. This is from Graham, who says, "Is there a simple explanation for how the probe doesn't fall into the sun, very close to that massive gravity well?"
Yeah, that's really a fantastic question. Yes, the sun has a huge gravity well, and if we have zero velocity, orbital velocity, we will fall directly toward the sun at really extremely high speed. But we have a problem here on Earth. We know that Earth is orbiting the sun, and the speed is about 30 kilometers per second. And whatever object we launch from Earth inherits that speed. And it's not easy to get rid of it. And by the way, when we launched Parker Solar Probe, we actually launched it against the orbital direction of the Earth. And the reason for that, we want it to slow down. And that when launching it that way we got it to deep down toward Venus. It's basically, it has all to do with slowing down in order to dive toward the sun. If we don't do that, it's extremely hard to get rid of the orbital speed of Earth that is extremely high.
So basically, the sun is always pulling on the spacecraft, but because the spacecraft has tangential velocity,
exactly.
It never quite falls in.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Andy, you're mute.
Yeah, thanks. I was reading that at closest approach to the sun, the probe is traveling at about 430,000 miles an hour. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct.
It's a blistering speed.
It's crazy, to be honest with you. I mean, okay, I'm a physicist. I go by kilometer per second. So Parker Solar Probe will be at 195 kilometers per second. If you pick a ride with Parker Solar Probe at that speed, you will go from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. in about 20 seconds.
That's crazy.
It's amazing. It's
absolutely
really amazing.
crazy. Absolutely crazy.
A lot faster than my Prius.
Yeah. And
anything's faster than your Prius.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And this is actually what is fascinating also by going so close to a massive object like the sun. We know that the sun is rotating, and it has the equator rotates at about one rotation is about 27 days. Parker Solar Probe at a certain time of the orbits is actually rotating faster than the sun.
That's amazing.
It's really faster than the sun, but once it starts getting out, it slows down. Obviously.
Yeah, sure.
Because of that.
Neil, would you like to return to your presentation?
Sure.
Okay, let's put that back up there.
So yeah, I talked about the TPS and what it does. By the way, when I mentioned closest approach, this side here will be at 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The backside will be at about 700 to 800 degrees, and 1 meter behind will be at room temperature. And it's there where all the most of the instruments are residing. They all reside in the shade of the thermal protection system, and they operate basically at room temperature. But the key to it is to keep the spacecraft pointing to the sun. But obviously, Parker Solar Probe can wiggle a little bit here and there, but the tolerance is a small fraction of a degree. That's all we can tolerate. And we have several subsystems that control the attitude of the spacecraft to keep it going that way. There is another piece of technology that we flew for the first time on Parker Solar Probe. Obviously, the solar panels, the cells themselves are made specifically for Parker Solar Probe because the conventional cells will not work close to the sun. They will just burn. So this new generation of cells were invented for Parker Solar Probe. But on top of that, the panels get extremely hot. So we have to cool them down. And the best way we found to cool them down is to have a network of tiny pipes, and we just fly water through them continuously. When the water gets through the solar panels, it gets hot, obviously. But when it gets to the radiators, which are these structures here, it cools down because the radiators will lose the energy to keep space. So that's another piece of technology that also was invented for Parker Solar Probe. But if you look at any other subsystem on the spacecraft, it is really cutting edge technology. We are at the extreme. We push the technology as much as we can to build this spacecraft.
Nour, we're getting in a lot of questions from our audience here. I wonder if I could
please
just, throw a few at you. Anne asks, are Parker Solar Probe and ESA's solar orbiter sharing information?
Absolutely. Actually, we share information in many ways. The two teams are overlapping quite a bit. That's by nature. We have scientists on both missions, and the two teams, we work really very nicely together, and we complement each other very, very nice, in a very nice way. Just to give you an example, this encounter that we are going through now, encounter number 15, we can see it from end to end from Earth. But Solar Orbiter is also on the side of Earth. So we have a joint campaign between Solar Probe, Solar Orbiter, Bepi Colombo, and many other space missions in ground solar observatory. There is nearly 50 observatories between space and ground that are coming together to observe the same target that is the sun at the same time. And obviously there are many types of observation that these different observatories contribute to this campaign. So we work very closely together with Solar Orbiter.
Let's see. Michael asks, is the heat shield technology being shared to us in products in everyday life, this kind of technology transfer idea.
Yes. So the technology, how to build the shield itself, is secret. We cannot share it because, it took NASA so long to find it. So we cannot talk openly about it. How the shield was built and all that, we cannot. In terms of applications to everyday life, there were a few, at least curious attempts to understand how the shield is done and whether we can have any application here on everyday life. But obviously, this type of invention will take quite a bit of time to find its way into our lives. So, if we have it, we don't have it now. I think in a few years we will, probably a few years or a couple of tens of years, we'll find applications for it on the ground.
Oh, that's too bad. There are a few days in July and August. I wish my roofing shingles were made out of that material.
But your roof would be quite expensive if you.
Well, there is the other side to that coin.
Yes.
One more for you. Daryl asks, does the probe use Mercury to slingshot back toward the sun?
Yeah, we thought about that, but Mercury is too small. It cannot really do much to Parker Solar Probe. So we are so fortunate to have a sizable planet like Venus that is between us and the sun that we can use, but Mercury itself is too small.
Okay. Let's see. You have a schematic of a diagram of the Parker Solar Probe up on the screen.
So I think what I want to show by this one, the solar probe itself is not really a big satellite. From the main body is about 3 meters high. That's how high it is. It's not very big. Obviously, we have the boom here in the back. And we have 4 instrument suites on the probe. We have one imager that is white light imager on the side. Obviously, we cannot look directly at the sun. The optical instruments will not work. But even the sensor that measure the solar wind, energetic particles, and all those, they are all residing on the bus here in the shade of the TPS. We have magnetometers on the boom here. The only exception to this two instruments that are residing in the bus are these electric antennas. These are exposed to the full solar environment, and they are made of titanium. They will be glowing red when we are flying by the sun. There is also another small instrument on the other side of this diagram. It's a Faraday cap. It measures the solar wind that is also exposed to the total solar environment. These are the only exception. Apart from these, every other piece of science payload resides in the shade of the TPS. With this one also, I want to show one thing. You see the solar panels? They were kind of stood back. They were not fully deployed because in this configuration, we are supposed to be closer to the sun. And when we are close to the sun, we don't need to expose the full solar panels. We just expose the tips of them, and that will give us enough energy to power the spacecraft. But obviously, when we are far away, we can deploy them completely and to get the power we need. So we have that degree of freedom to operate the solar panels. Now let me go to the heart of the science of Parker Solar Probe, and that is this is actually brand new. These results were published just a couple of months ago, and they have to do with the solar wind. And I mentioned about the solar wind is this flow of charged particles that is flowing continuously away from the sun to fill the whole hemisphere. And the problem with it, how it is born to start with. At the base of the corona here, what is the process, the physical process or processes that give birth to the solar wind? The second question is, what is the nature of the solar wind at the source? Because when we measure the solar wind near Earth or beyond, it looks like it's a continuous flow. but is it also continuous at the source, or is it intermittent? Intermittent in the sense that it's made of individual events that obviously when they propagate further away from the sun, they kind of homogenize because of some physical processes like turbulence or some other instabilities that develop into this flow. And the third question is, how does the solar wind escape the solar gravity? The escape speed of the sun is about 600 kilometers per second. And all the speeds we measure lower down in the corona are way lower than that. It's about 200 to 300 kilometers per second, but not more than that. So there should be more energy that the particles are gaining to escape the sun's gravity. And this is actually where Parker Solar Probe played an instrumental role into guiding us toward finding solving this mystery in a way. So when flying space instruments, we are used to fluctuations in the magnetic field like this one here, but also in some other parameters like the velocity, temperature, density, all that. But we are used to these fluctuations to be small, like the extreme right of this graphic or the extreme left. But when Parker Solar Probe flew very close to the sun, and by the way, what I'm showing here is the magnetic field. What we started seeing is humongous fluctuations of the magnetic field. And we were wondering what these are. By the way, we got this data 2 days before the AGU in 2019, and it was a Tuesday. And on Thursday, we were supposed to show the first data to the public at the AGU. And for about 15 minutes, we were wondering whether there was something wrong with the instrument. But after those 15 minutes, we realized, no, actually the instrument worked as designed, and what we are seeing is real. So this is what we were seeing. What we are seeing is are ripples in the magnetic field. These are the magnetic field rotates over itself all the way back to the sun and out again. It forms what like a mountain switchback. Why these are quite interesting? Because they are not easy to form. In the magnetic field, there are different ways that the magnetic field can relax and just stretch out. So to form them and maintaining them, it's not really an easy task. And this is one example of them. You see here the magnetic field was about 100 nanotesla. During the switchback itself, it's minus 100 nanotesla. So it had a full rotation out and back. But the main thing I want to show by this panel here, look at the velocity. Before we enter the switchback, the velocity of the wind is about 300 kilometers per second. When we enter the structure, we pass to about 700 kilometers per second, meaning that this structure carry a lot of energy with them. And remember that to explain the heating and the acceleration of the wind, what we are basically looking at are source of energies to power the wind. So the switchbacks could be one of them. But the fascinating thing about them is not even this. The switchbacks come in groups, we call them patches. And when we look at the size of these patches, they correlate nicely with other structure on the solar surface. So in a way, that feature, the patchiness of the switchbacks, gave us a hint. They might be actually coming all the way from the base of the corona. So what we did, we went and looked at there. What is going on there? And I wish this movie was playing because it would be fascinating to see. So what we saw there is we have tiny jets of plasma that are erupting everywhere on the solar surface. And you can see them here on the poles of the sun in particular. You see them everywhere, but these are extremely small. So these jets are what is powering the solar wind. That's how the solar wind starts at the base. With just this observation, by the way, these observations are not from Parker Solar Probe. These are from the Solar Dynamic Observatory. So with just these observations, we can answer two key questions. The solar wind is born through jetting at the base of the corona, and it is also intermittent in the sense that it is made of individual jets that are erupting all the time from everywhere. Are there questions?
We have one from Derek, and you touched on this, but Derek is probing a little. He says, "What are the electric field antennas made of? They are clearly outside of the beyond the heat shield. What is their material?"
The whips themselves are made of niobium, and it's actually not even pure niobium. It's an alloy of niobium that is so heat resistant. They can go to extreme temperature, but they will not melt. And that's what we want them. Just for history, we started actually with different materials for the whips, but after looking at them and all that, we actually found out that they are not adequate for them, and we went to niobium as the last resource.
That's kind of what science is, I guess. Trial and errors. If it doesn't work, you try something else.
We have one of our engineers here at EPL. I was talking to her once, and she actually was the lead on the heat shield, and she put it the best way I can find. She told me, "Well, you know what? We spent years breaking stuff." And that's what it is. You really push material to their extremes and see at what point they will break, and see whether that point is what you need or you need something else.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, one very interesting question. Ian asks, I wouldn't even touch this, but I'm going to give it to you, Nour, and you see what you do with this. Could dark energy be involved in the acceleration of the solar wind?
Yes, if we define dark energy like waves, for example, or turbulence, or other processes that we don't know of. It has all to do with conversion of energy. So we know that the sun has all the energy we need to not only power the solar wind and heat the corona and all that. The mechanical energy in the convection is so huge. But the problem with it, how can you transfer that mechanical energy into thermal and kinetic energy higher up in the corona? That's actually the secret. And the observation I showed earlier with this small jetting, what is basically happening is you have tiny magnetic fields with opposite polarities. They come together and they reconnect. And the reconnection will give you, first of all, energy right away to the plasma in the form of heat and speed, but also they produce a lot of waves. And the waves are the ones that will keep the wind accelerated and hot as it moves away from the sun. So in a way, you can view that as dark energy that we don't see directly, but it's there.
So not the dark energy that cosmologists talk about, though, in the accelerated expansion of the universe. Different dark energies.
Yeah, it's a different type of dark energy, I would say.
Now, can I ask a question? So far with the Parker Solar Probe, for you, what has been the most surprising discovery? Something that you really weren't expecting?
There are several of them. Let me start with probably something that you wouldn't expect. Let me start with Venus itself. And whenever we fly by Venus, we turn our instruments on. And for some of these flybys, we actually fly behind the planet. We have an eclipse with the planet. And we have our imager Venus that looks at the night side of the planet. And initially, we thought, this is really great opportunity to image the clouds in the atmosphere of the planet. And we got one of those images, and we are not Venus specialists. So we thought, we saw the the clouds there. But it happens that we imaged a structure that the Akatsuki Japanese space mission imaged exactly the same structure several years ago. Anyway, it was kind of disappointing to us. But I showed that image. I was giving a colloquium here at EPL, and they showed that image, and they exactly said what I told you now. That's basically what I said. But we have our folks here who are Venus specialists. They were really excited about it, and they sent me several emails saying, "We need that data. We want it." And there is probably way more to it than you said. And we gave them the data, obviously. And what they did with it, they analyzed the data itself, but also with modeling as well. And what they found is the shortest wavelength thermal emission from the surface of Venus. So Parker Solar Probe has the record now in terms of the discovery of the shortest wavelength of light that is coming directly from the surface of the planet.
Wow.
And what Parker Solar Probe in a way did is opening a new window to observe the planet. And what is amazing about this is we had several other missions that were dedicated to Venus, and they orbited the planet for years and years and years. For some reason, they didn't see it. But for us, it's just 10 minutes, and we were there. We saw it. But they did some more work on it. And this work, by the way, is not even published yet. And I think from those observations, we can even say quite a bit about the composition of the rocks on the surface of the planet. To me, that's why that was not expected at all. It was not in the plan, but still, it's that synergistic science we can do whenever you have a mission like great missions like Probe, James Webb, and Hubble. The other big thing that
Nour,
yes.
Sorry, Nour. Can I interrupt? I'd like to paraphrase a very famous quote and say that you went to the sun and actually you discovered Venus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. But this is exploration, really. It's exploration is finding stuff that you did not know about at all. That's
Sure.
what it is. But I think the biggest thing, the biggest contribution for a mission like Parker Solar Probe is what I touched upon just a moment ago, is to explain these mysteries that lasted for us from the late 40s. That is the heating and the acceleration of the wind. But this is the big thing to me. It's not solving this problem. Solving them is a huge thing, definitely. But whenever you solve a problem, you create a much bigger problem. And the curiosity for me is, what is the biggest problem that we are going to face for the next 100 years? To me, that probably will be the biggest contribution of a mission like Parker Solar Probe. But we don't. I think there are a few ideas out there, and if they materialize, I bet you they will dwarf all the complexity that I talked about for the last 30 minutes or so.
It's surprising in a way when you get an idea for a mission and you get your team together and you write the proposal. You have to convince the reviewers that you know why you're putting this instrument on and what it's going to find. And yet, so often, yes, maybe you would answer those questions, but so many others get answered or new questions get created.
Exactly. Yeah. And also the other thing also, but that's the nature of science and exploration. We designed our instruments with the knowledge we had, and thinking that we are gonna find this and this and this. But what you end up with is you find yourself like a student who is going to school for the first day. You start learning stuff as you go, and that's what we do, and that's actually why we wake up every morning excited and trying to see what is new in the data, what is new in the theory, and all that stuff. It's fascinating.
Fantastic.
Thank you. It's a lovely presentation, Nour.
Thank you.
Can you just, the next step after, just moving forward a little bit, the next step after Parker Solar Probe is the Firefly constellation. Can you explain a bit about that, please?
Well, thank you. And I think you came to the right place. I'm actually the lead on the study for the decade on Firefly. So, okay. Firefly is a totally different concept. And there are reasons for it. And, okay, obviously the sun is a sphere. It's the only star in the whole universe that we can observe as a three-dimensional object. But so far, we've never done that. And the reason why we need to do it is pretty simple. When you look at sunspots and active regions and magnetic fields in general in the sun, they are extremely active. And if you don't follow them with time, you are losing information. And that's actually the main limitation that we cannot predict space weather, is that we cannot follow this evolving magnetic fields. So the way to, and there are other problems, for example, the solar cycle. The main problem that we cannot explain the solar cycle is because we don't have any information about the poles of the sun. And the poles of the sun are extremely important to the processes that are ongoing in the interior of the sun. So Firefly is basically a constellation of 4 spacecrafts. 2 of them will stay in the ecliptic. They will start drifting like the stereo pairs of spacecrafts. But when they arrive to 90 or between 90 and 120 degrees, we'll park them there. And with Earth, they will form a triangle. And they will start orbiting the sun in the same as a triangle. That's these 2 spacecrafts with Earth alone, they will give us 75% coverage of the total surface of the sun. Now, we have also 2 other spacecrafts that will launch together, fly almost together all the way out to Jupiter, have a gravity assist there, go out of the ecliptic. But after that, we have to separate them. And that when we arrive at the primary phase of the mission, we will have 4 pi steradian coverage of the whole sun. So that way, we will miss nothing. You mentioned earlier the extreme event that erupted on the back of the sun. Had we had Firefly, it will not be the back of the sun anymore, because we will see it. We will have coverage. We will have spacecrafts looking at it. But the idea about Firefly is basically the first stone in the whole program. That's how we should observe the sun. Now that we want to send women and men to the moon and hopefully to Mars soon, we need to protect them. We need to know space weather everywhere in the inner hemisphere. And the only way to do it is observe the sun as a sphere, not as a circle of a disk. That's how we want to do it. And the nice thing about Firefly also, this is a big mission that has to bring us all together. When I say us, it's the international community. We want multiple agencies like NASA, ESA, JAXA, and other agencies to be involved in big missions like that one, because that way they can share the cost, they can share everything, we also share knowledge and bring the scientists together. That's actually the most important thing about it.
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
We have another question from Chris in the chat. Is the orbit around the sun degrading?
The Earth's orbit.
Yeah, the Earth's orbit. Yeah.
The Earth orbit, well, even if it is degrading, it's very, very marginal. So the orbit is pretty stable, and it will remain for very, very, very long time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Nour, is it an accident that APL has 2 missions named after flies? Firefly and Dragonfly.
That's really question.
Housefly and
butterfly.
Let me start with Dragonfly. Well, Dragonfly it's really from the name. When you look at the spacecraft, it looks like a dragonfly.
Yeah, it does.
The name is really fascinating, and I love that mission. I'm not involved in it, but it's just fascinating, this mission.
Yeah.
So the real name of Firefly, the original name, I would say, is 4 pi. And it comes from the nature of it. It's 4 pi coverage of the sun. For scientists and for people like you all, when I say 4 pi, it actually, it makes sense. But for the layperson out there, if you tell them 4 pi mission, it's not, probably they will not buy it much. So our folks here in our mission area, they told me, you know what, I think we should probably think about changing the name of the mission. And I resisted that. I said, no, I don't want to change it. until one of our graphic designs, Marcy, she actually came up with a logo for the mission. And when I saw it, I said, yes, we changed the name of the mission. It's Firefly. And actually, it's a firefly with the sun on one side and having some like light coming out of it. It's really beautiful logo, and that's why the name Firefly came from. And also it has a little bit with branding. So we want to fly insects all the time.
Ian in the chat says, would it be better for all the agencies to form one big one, or would that be bad?
I think coming together is always a good thing. Definitely, it's when you gather like here. I'm learning from you a lot, as I hope you are learning from me as well. That's and it's helpful to build these big missions, but we don't necessarily need big missions all the time. We need a whole spectrum of mission, going from small missions to big missions. For the small missions, I think every agency can build them, but still we collaborate closely together. But for big missions, going forward, I think we need definitely to come together to be able to afford them and to build them in a timely fashion.
Great, thank you. Well, unless there are any more questions in the chat, I think we would like to give a big round of applause, would we not, to Nour. So Nour, thank you so much. You've been absolutely wonderful, so interesting, and obviously we'd like to wish you all the best with the current encounter of the Parker probe with the sun, and hope everything goes well, and hope it finds out some amazing things. What's the projected lifespan of the probe? How long are you expecting it to last for?
So, okay, Parker Solar Probe, as I mentioned earlier, the prime phase is 7 years. Now we are over 4 years. We still have 2.5 years to go, but the spacecraft is healthy. It is like we launched it, basically. So we will keep it going as long as we can. In terms of fuel is not a problem at all. We have enough fuel to probably keep Parker Solar Probe going for 40 or 50 years.
Wow.
But there are obviously other subsystems that will probably degrade because we are flying through a harsh environment. All the subsystems are behaving way better than expected. So hopefully Parker Solar Probe will keep going for a cycle or 2 cycles. And we'll keep pushing it as much as we can.
Right, fantastic, wonderful. Well, listen, Nour, you're more than welcome to stay around for the rest of the program, unless you have obviously something urgent to do. But we're getting lots of positive feedback, as you can see in the comments. So thank you, thank you.
Parker makes new discoveries. You are always welcome to come back and share.
Oh, please do. Yes, absolutely. You're welcome back anytime. You know where we are. You have the link, so just drop in anytime.
Yeah,
definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. Okay,
thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you've enjoyed yourself. It was great having you. Yes, so there we are. Just before we move on with the rest of today's show, just a couple of odds and ends from me. Firstly, obviously, we'd like to say a big thank you to those of you who bought us coffees again last week. Very kind of you. And just in case you don't know what that's all about, I'm just going to put this up on the screen. If you would like to buy us a coffee to help cover our ongoing expenses for Space Oddities, please scan the QR code below, and you can go and buy us a coffee. And we appreciate that very, very much. Also, we are still intending to run a competition this month. As you may be aware, we do run a monthly competition for you to win a prize of some sort. We are still intending to do that, and we hope to be bringing you news of that next week. I know it's towards the end of March, but better late than never. So we will be bringing you a competition of sorts, hopefully next week. And there we are. Anything else about that? I don't think so. We would like to say to those of you who've sent in your favourite space images, we're running this series of favourite space images. those of you who sent them in, we'd like to say a bit of an apology because we haven't had time to fit them in this week, but we'll be having a look at them next week. So there we are. Now, moving on, I think in terms of where we are in terms of timing, I think what we'd like to do next is go to Jonathan. So, Jonathan, are you all there and ready? Remember to unmute.
Yeah, I believe I've unmuted now. I've got the aircraft mode on at the moment, so hopefully that's working.
Okay.
And the hoovering has now disappeared.
Okay. So just to let those of you know who aren't aware, Jonathan joined us last week as a panelist. You'll be seeing a lot from Jonathan. And when he was on Astro Radio with us, Jonathan presented a series of programs called Neo Watch, because Jonathan knows about what's going on in the world of near-Earth objects. So Jonathan has decided that he would like to sort of resurrect that for Space Oddities. So he'll be giving us regular updates on the things that might be threatening the Earth or otherwise out there. So Jonathan, thank you for doing that. And
yeah, no problem at all.
It's
no problem. First of all, Andy, it was it basically off the back of the first book I wrote, which was Cosmic Debris,
right.
Which basically went through that sort of scenario. So bringing Neo Watch back to life is sort of a resurrection, if you like, from the days of Astro Radio.
Fantastic. And Jonathan joined us last week, and he's been extremely foolish and come back for a second week. So you're welcome back, Jonathan. And
no, absolutely.
So what have you got for us this week?
Right, a bit of a pilot this week in anticipation of next week's Neo Watch. I used to start the actual program itself by looking at what the ESA currently was stating with regards to near-Earth asteroids on the risk list. So as it stands at the moment, as of today, there are 1,459 near-Earth asteroids in the risk list. That's out of a total of 31,483 near-Earth asteroids. And current known comets, we're up to 3,861, of which 120 are classed as near-Earth comets. And to be classed as such, the orbits must bring them within 120 million miles of the sun. Now, last week, Andy, you did mention 2023 DW.
Yes.
Lots of talk about lots of like I said last week. It's always going to be the asteroids that come sun from the direction of the sun that's going to cause a problem. Those that we don't know most about are going to cause the most issues, I would have thought. So 2023 DW is a 50-meter sized asteroid, was due to and still is due to rendezvous with the Earth February the 14th, 2046. The current estimates have the asteroid down as roughly 1 in 600 chance of hitting us, so it's well off the list. And in reality, it's only got a ranking of 1 on the Torino scale out of a possible 10, of course. And 1, if you're 1 on the Torino scale, sits on its own, 0 being yellow. Then you've got 1 sitting just in the green zone, so there's very little chance of impact. And 1 is the green zone before we move up a level. Of course, 10 that would sit in the red zone. 8, 9, and 10 on the Torino scale. Obviously offering the worst case scenarios, and a 10 is reckoned to occur around about once every 100,000 years. So it's sort of out of our remit. I don't think anything to worry about. 2023 DW discovered February 26th of this year. The orbit was estimated to be around 271 days, and the last recorded information we've got on 2023 DW is that it was traveling at a distance of around about 13 million miles from Earth at a steady 55,000 miles per hour. Now, for comparison, when you look at the size of 2023 DW, 50-meter size, it's a similar size to the asteroid that caused the Tunguska event in 1908. So that's the same sort of bulk, same sort of mass, and the asteroid responsible for the dinosaurs' demise, or was part of that extinction event, was around 200 times bigger than that of 2023 DW. So once again, it has to be said that it's made the press really for the wrong sort of reasons. I think being primarily February the 14th, Valentine's Day, nice sort of round date to pick on, but it really is very low on the list indeed. 640, I think, was around about the average to 1 chance of hitting us. It's 1 on the Torino scale, so I think we can write that one off unless it encounters anything that alters its trajectory gravitational wise, and that is always one of the biggest dangers. It was thought with regards to the asteroid responsible for the demise of the dinosaurs that it might have been a sort of a billiard shot that was taking place in the asteroid belt, more or less a cannon effect. What it was a rock against another rock, and the complete fluke of that rock was it did actually end up striking the Earth. So there are all sorts of variables about how the asteroids can actually end up striking us, but in that particular event, it does seem to be extremely unfortunate that the strike within the asteroid belt acted as a sort of billiard effect and produced the asteroid that came in our direction. But like I said before, like I said last week, it's the ones that we don't see. Those are the ones that are going to cause a problem. So 2023 DW, you can strike that from that. It'll be obviously for around 2024 to 6, it'll make the news headlines once again, but of causing no chance of impact really whatsoever, ranking 1 on the Torino scale. Now next week, a little bit more in depth, I do a little bit more coverage, but that's just a taster of how I'd like Neil Watch to perform on Space Oddities.
Thank you very much.
So as we're talking about the destruction of all mankind, you said we get a number 10 event, and there's a kind of really bad event every.
Well, that seems to, 100,000 is the estimate for.
When was the last one? Do you know?
Well, I mean, when I was actually putting that down, that called it into question about that actual time frame, because we're talking about the extinction event as being, and then you've got the likes of Tunguska and those sort of events. So really, that 100,000 years is probably not exactly. It could happen anywhere in between that time over that time period. It's just that it averages out like that, I guess. Is where the stats come from, but you've got to go back to the main extinction event for that to happen, I would have thought.
Right. I just wanted to know if I can start getting aggressive with my credit card and just kind of
hammer it. Make go for it. No worries. Get some new shoes, whatever.
Okay, thank you so much, Jonathan. I think next I'd like to come to Michael. Michael, you've got just a brief bit of news, society news for us, haven't you?
Yes, thank you, Andy. Do you want to start the?
Yep, coming up right now.
Okay, first of all, we had a guest last week talking about the Irish Astronomy Week, which actually started today. Runs from the 20th to the 26th of March, and they have 100 events in four provinces in Ireland, with the events going on in various places in the country. If you want more information about that, go to irishastronomyweek.ie for more information. Okay. Next one I've got, this Saturday, we have a Zoom meeting by the British Interplanetary Society West Midlands branch entitled Blasting into Space from the UK by Robin Brand. Robin will present the current progress on launching satellites from Britain. That's an online lecture via Zoom. Details of that can be found at the website bis-space.com. Okay. Next one, my own Go Space Watch has a Go Space Watch online lecture coming up next month. Tales of the Challenger is by spaceflight author Ben Evans, and that's going to be on Thursday, the 6th of April at 8 o'clock UK time. And details of that registration, which is free, can be found at gospacewatch.earth. Okay. And lastly, talking of Go Space Watch, I'd like to mention my magazine called Capcom. Original articles on spaceflight and astronomy and the latest space news. Published 6 times a year. Capcom costs just £14 a year for a printed and delivered to a UK address, or as a PDF file and sent to it in any email address for just £10 a year. And subscription details for that can be found at gospacewatch.earth/Capcom.
Okay,
so that's
Michael,
all I have for this week, Andy.
Sorry, could I ask you to go back 2 slides? Okay, when is that happening? There's no date on it.
Oh, sorry, sorry about that. That is this Saturday at 2 o'clock UK time. Yeah,
fantastic. That's 2 o'clock UK time. Get your tickets from BISSpace.com. Thank you, Mike.
And that is free registration for that meeting as well.
And that looks like it might be really interesting. I might drop in on that myself, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
So there we are. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. And I think finally this evening we come to somebody who's been sitting there rather patiently, and it's getting late, and she's sleeping for 2 now, or something like that. So can we go straight over then to Rachael for the weekly viewers gallery?
Yes, please. Sleeping for 2, but it doesn't help me make the presentations. I have to do that myself.
No, that time will come.
I'll get him trained up. So we've got, starting off with one by Martin Bracken, which is nice to see some new names, of the Elephant's Trunk Nebula in Cepheus. This is about 3 hours integration on a 1-shot colour. And I like this one because it's a different colour palette that we're used to seeing, and it's so mysterious. And a different orientation as well. It's nice to be different. So very nice. Thank you, Martin. I think we've got a few of the same actually in this show tonight. Then we've got one by Regular Jerry. This is the Heart Nebula, taken again on a 1-shot colour and using the Extreme filter. Which is very nice. A nice glowing Milot 15 in the middle.
It's nice. Nice to see the glow in the center.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Very cosmic.
Lovely, lovely, absolutely lovely.
That's lovely, that is, yeah.
Another one by Joe, which is again the Elephant's Trunk, using the same equipment. But again, a different colour palette, so it just shows everybody has a different take on it, which is nice.
That is a lovely palette, isn't it?
It is, it's very different.
Yeah, beautiful.
Like
beautiful.
Nice Who palette look. Very nice.
Very nice indeed.
Then we have a rosette by Lee, who I think is again watching tonight. This is from February, 2 hours and 50 minutes. Again, using a 1-shot colour camera. And he said he's always seen it as the rosette, but he's heard about the skull orientation, so he's never actually seen it until now. And now he's rotated it. You can see that.
You can see that very
skull shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. That way.
I always see it's more like a monkey skull than a human skull.
Or it's sort of got a lion's nose, like a cat.
Yeah, there's something around the nose and the lips section. It's sort of feline, isn't it? I suppose.
Definitely.
A bit like spectacle lenses as well.
A bit like that, in fact.
This is a really lovely image, so thank you, Lee. Then we've got, moving on, we've got a Crescent Nebula by Chris O'Riordan. And he said he doesn't know why this is called a crescent either. It looks more like a nectarine stone or a brain. And he went for a dramatic theatre curtain look when he made this and managed to still retain some of the blue in the nebula itself. So this is a whopping 6 hours and 40 minutes integration from his very lucky Bortle 4 skies. Which is very nice.
There's a lot of drama in this picture.
Yeah, so much drama.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Lovely.
All about the drama. Well done, Chris.
Well done, Chris.
Then we have one from Karim, which is nice. So he's not here, but he's here in pictorial spirit. So he's had a go at one of the JWST image files and had a go at the Wolf-Rayet star, which we were talking about earlier on in the show. He said it's not as good as the NASA scientists put together, but it was quick and done with freeware. So
that's very good, Karim.
Yeah, very nice.
Very nice, isn't it? You captured a lot of the drama of that, certainly.
I like the colours in this one as well. I feel like you can really get a sense of light bursting from behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done, Karim.
She's really good, so thank you, Karim.
Yeah.
Then moving on, we've got one by Kev, another rosette, a peachy one, which is 3 hours and 25 minutes. And it's the longest integration he's managed so far, and it's one of his favourite objects. I think it's a firm favourite of most astrophotographers, I think.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Look at that.
I'm trying to see that skull now.
I can see it.
But yeah.
I don't think I can find 3.5 hours of clear skies ever around where I live.
I don't know if he's taken it all in one sitting or not, but you know, he's got them from somewhere. We've not had any clear skies for ages.
That would only be half a night of clear skies for in Sparkford.
So yeah, thank you, Kev. I think that was it for tonight.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. That's very kind of you. We are going to, because time's getting on this evening, we've had such a fascinating time talking to Nour. We're just going to move things around a bit. We're going to move some things back to next week, viewers. So there's no news tonight, but you'll have a bumper news next week with 2 weeks of news. And Bernard was going to give us some presentations as well tonight. We're moving those to next week. So this is just so that we don't keep you hanging around unnecessarily. And because, you know, some of us are getting on in years and we need our beauty sleep. Some more than others, although not mentioning any names, of course. So thank you very much, panel, for all your contributions tonight. Thank you, Jonathan, for your nascent Neo watch, and we'll look forward to hearing some more next week if you'd like to. Thank you to everybody. Thank you, Lou, for bringing us Nour to talk to tonight. It was an absolutely amazingly fantastic talk. I think everybody would agree. So thank you for that.
Nice one, Jonathan. Yeah.
What's what?
Thank you also to Jonathan for his Hoover. That's very kind.
You're welcome.
Very kind of you to bring your Hoover along tonight, Jonathan. I must admit that's been a first for us, having a Hoover on the show as a guest, but that sucks. So
Hey,
it's the way I tell them.
done and dusted.
Anyway, viewers, just one last chance. If you would like to buy us a coffee to send us off into the night with, to keep us warm during the winter hours, then you can do so by scanning this QR code, and we are very grateful for any support because it helps us keep the show going. So next week, well, who knows next week? We know we've got a bumper news, and Bernard's going to be talking about rather interesting. Is it a discovery or just a suggestion at the moment, Bernard, about the moons of Uranus? Is there some concrete evidence?
So it's some scientists have revisited data from the Voyager 2 probe that went. That's the only space probe that went that did a flyby of Uranus, and it found some tantalizing new evidence. Maybe not evidence, but at least some. There might be something new occurring. Suggestions. There we go. So yes, we'll talk about it more next week.
We'll talk about that new exciting discoveries from Uranus and even from the Voyager probe. And again, this demonstrates that this planetary data from the space probe is analysed for decades after it was acquired. So the analysis of the Voyager data from the late 80s is still going on, and it's still revealing secrets, the nature of which Bernard will be revealing next week. So we've got a bit to look forward to, and no doubt a lot happening between now and then. So we'd just like to say thank you to everybody for watching, and would like to extend a big thank you again to our sponsor, Rother Valley Optics. Thank you for supporting us in this venture. So thanks to the guys at Rother Valley Optics, and we will be back same time on YouTube and Facebook 8 o'clock UK time, and then it will be 3 o'clock Eastern time, I think, next week, won't it?
That's
Did it work out? Yes, I think it will. Yes.
Back at 3 o'clock next week, yeah.
Yeah, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. UK time on Facebook and YouTube next Monday. And thank you so much for viewing tonight. So it's about time we said goodnight to everybody, panel. So say goodnight, panel.
Good night, panel.
Good night, panel.
And we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a fantastic week. And from all of us at Space Oddities, all the very best. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.